He limped into the shelter under the weight of a shattered past, his fur patchy, eyes dull, and soul heavy with the kind of silence only pain could teach. They called him Max. Once a proud K-9 officer, Max had taken a bullet protecting his human partner during a warehouse raid. The man lived. Max survived too, but barely. And while the officer recovered and returned to the line of duty, Max was discharged, deemed unfit for service. He was 6 years old. Broken. And alone. No one wanted an injured dog with scars that told war stories and a limp that never healed. He sat in the corner of his kennel, unmoving for days, watching other dogs bark, wag, and get adopted one by one. Volunteers tried to coax him with treats, toys, even music. Nothing worked. He would only blink slowly, as if each breath was something he had to consciously choose to take. Shelter staff whispered behind closed doors. He's not adjusting. He hasn't bonded with anyone. Maybe. It's time to consider the other option. Max didn't know what the other option meant. But the way everyone's voice dropped when they said it told him enough. 17 miles away, in a small house shaded by maple trees, lived a little girl named Emily. 8 years old. Big brown eyes that seemed to carry entire conversations in a glance. She was quiet not because she didn't have anything to say, but because she had learned the world often didn't listen. Emily had stopped talking after her father died in a car crash 2 years ago. Since then, words seemed too heavy, too loud, too pointless. Therapy helped, a little. Her mother tried everything, new school, art classes, even pony rides, but Emily stayed inside her shell, whispering only to her journal and sometimes to the stars. That was until the school organized a field trip to the local animal shelter. The kids poured into the building in a rush of giggles and high-pitched excitement. Puppies were held, kittens meowed, and tails wagged. But Emily didn't run with the crowd. She moved slowly, her fingers trailing along the kennels, stopping when she saw him. A dog that didn't bark. Didn't wag. Didn't even get up. Just a shadow sitting still in the corner. Emily dropped to her knees outside his kennel and looked into his eyes. Max blinked once, then looked away. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. She came back again the next day. And the next. No one noticed at first. Then a volunteer mentioned it to the manager. The little girl who doesn't talk? She's been here every day. Always with Max. One afternoon, Emily reached under the bars and gently laid her hand on the cold cement floor. She didn't speak. She didn't move. But she waited. Minutes passed. Then something incredible happened. Max stood up. Wobbly, slow, uncertain. He limped to her hand and rested his nose on it. That was the first time in months anyone had seen him initiate contact. The shelter called her mother. They explained what had been happening, unsure of what to suggest. Emily's mom was hesitant at first. Bringing home a former police dog with trauma and injuries? It sounded risky. But she saw something different in her daughter's eyes, something she hadn't seen since her husband's funeral. Hope. And so, after a week of paperwork and meetings, Max came home. The transition wasn't perfect. Max would wake up from nightmares, barking and growling in the night. Emily would tiptoe into the living room, sit beside him, and hum softly until he calmed down. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. At school, things began to shift. Kids asked about the dog. Emily showed them pictures. She even began to whisper short answers. One day, during show and tell, she stood in front of the class, held up a crayon drawing of Max, and said clearly, "This is Max. He's my best friend." It was the first full sentence she had spoken in almost 2 years. As the months passed, Max healed in his own way. His limp never left him, but his spirit returned. He would greet Emily at the door, tail wagging with such joy it looked like it could power the whole house. He followed her everywhere, like a silent guardian angel. They were two souls who had lost too much, found each other, and stitched their broken pieces together to make something whole again. One spring morning, the shelter held a fundraiser, and Emily was invited as a guest speaker. Her mom sat nervously in the front row, holding her breath. Emily walked up to the mic with Max at her side, wearing a vest that read "Retired Canine, adopted with love." She looked out at the crowd, then down at Max, and said into the microphone. Everyone thought Max was broken. But he wasn't. He just needed someone to love him, and I did. And when I did, he helped me heal too. The room went silent. Then came the applause. Then the tears. Max spent the rest of his days as Emily's loyal companion, sleeping by her bed, walking beside her through every season of life, from childhood to her teenage years. He passed away peacefully in her arms at the age of 13, surrounded by the family who had come to love him as much as she did. At his grave in the backyard, beneath a tree blooming with pink blossoms, a small stone reads, "Max, braver than most, loves beyond words." And every year, on his adoption day, Emily, now grown, and studying to become a therapist for children, sits by that tree and tells his story. Because she knows that sometimes, the most broken hearts are the ones most capable of healing others. And sometimes, all it takes, is a quiet little girl raising her hand. Paw prints.